Alrighty, there's been a lot of misinformation, wrong information, whatever you want to call it, online, on YouTube, various websites, about bullet ballistics and their performance out of the muzzle at a certain range, 100 yards, 500 yards, 1,000 yards, whatever it happens to be. And this video is going to first spell out the myth out there on how people are trying to calculate this, and then once we totally throw that myth to the wayside where it belongs, I'll show you how to calculate this stuff the correct way. Another thing, this video is not an opinion video. This is fact. If you respond to this video, well, that's your opinion. It's the equivalent of me saying George Washington was the first president of the United States, and you saying, well, that's your opinion. It's not an opinion, it's fact. All this information is fact. If you don't like it, I don't know, sorry. The myth is to calculate a performance of a bullet, how hard it can hit, you want to calculate the force. And the formula for that is force equals mass times acceleration. Well, that is the formula for force, but to anybody that thinks this is the right way to calculate the performance of a bullet, let me ask you the obvious question here. What is the acceleration of this bullet? It's traveling in this direction. Well, obviously, it's going to get pulled down by gravity, so there's an acceleration. And it's definitely going to slow down, and that means it's going to have a negative acceleration in this direction or a positive acceleration in this direction. If it was speeding up, it would have a positive direction this way. If it would keep going the same speed, there would be no acceleration, but because it's slowing down from hitting the air, it has a negative acceleration. So my question to you is, force equals mass times acceleration. What's the acceleration here? Well, people say it has a muzzle velocity of 3,050 feet per second. Hello, that's a muzzle velocity, not a muzzle acceleration. So using this equation here, it really doesn't make sense. It's like trying to measure how tall you are in gallons. Like, you can't do it. How many gallons tall are you? It doesn't make any sense. That being said, how would you calculate the performance characteristics of a bullet? Well, I'll show you. The formula that we're going to use is for energy. How much energy does a bullet have? So we're going to use E for energy, and the formula is 1/2 the mass times the velocity squared. Now this squared is very important because that equals the same thing as 1/2 the mass times the velocity times the velocity. So the velocity actually counts twice. People say, well, a 308 is a bigger bullet. It's a heavier bullet, so its ballistics are going to be way better. I say, hold your horses. The mass counts. That's true. But the velocity counts twice as much. So, that being said, I'm gonna use the I'm going to use the statistics from a pretty common 5.56 round on a 62 grain bullet. Now, that brings up the question. This is not difficult math, but you could lose your way. 62 grain bullet. Now, what's a grain? A grain is a weight. A weight is not a mass. A weight is a force. And we want to get this this has to equal some number in foot-pounds. That's the unit of energy. Or joules. But joules is what the Europeans use. This is America. We use foot-pounds. You know, just how it is. We have a 62 grain bullet. Well, we want to get it into pounds, so we're going to have to convert this. 7,000 grains equals 1 pound. So, how many pounds is 1 grain? I'm sorry, how many pounds is 62 grains? 62 grains is 0.00886 pounds, period, equals 62 grains. Zoom in on this for you. Alright. Hopefully we're all cruising along here. So we have how many pounds it is, but that doesn't really help us because that's a weight, not a mass. So we're going to say, well, weight is a force, so we can do weight equals mass times acceleration. We have the weight, that's 0.00886 pounds. We have the acceleration is gravity. Obviously, how much do you weigh? It's your mass times how hard gravity is pulling down on you. That's why when you get on a scale, the force acting on you is gravity. So this acceleration here is due to gravity. 0.00886 pounds equals, mass is what we want to find, acceleration due to gravity, 32 feet per second Look at this, feet per second. That is an acceleration. Feet per second is a velocity. So it brings us back. If you're going to find the muzzle, the performance characteristics, how are you going to find this? Well, this is always the same because that's pulling down on it. But how are you going to find the acceleration at 500 yards? How much it's slowing down? It's a pretty complicated problem to solve. But anyways, I digress. So the mass, when you solve this out, equals 0.000275. And what units are those? Yeah, they're called slugs. Slugs. Look it up if you don't believe me. That's what it is. But anyways, now we can go back. We have our mass. We're going to use the velocity, the muzzle velocity, to be 3,050 feet per second. So now we have the mass right here and the velocity. And now we can plug it into this equation. And when we do, we get 1/2 E equals 1/2 times 0.000275 times 3050 times 3050. Now, what happens here? E equals 1279 foot-pounds. That's how to calculate the energy that your bullet will have. The ballistics on the side of the box will show you at 500 yards, it will be going maybe 1,500 feet per second, maybe 1,200 feet per second, whatever the bullet says. That's your velocity. The mass never changes. The mass of a 62 grain bullet will not change while it's in flight. So my comment is that the velocity is twice as important as the size of the bullet. And to use F equals ma, it doesn't make any sense. Especially if you're using a velocity. Then you're just doing F equals mv. It's not even valid. So I hope you learned anything. If you didn't, I could make another video, maybe a multi-part. If you think I'm wrong, I really don't know what to say to you. I got several years of engineering background backing me up. You know, I don't even need to tell you my resume, but I solve problems much harder than this on a regular basis. So Hope that clears it up.